Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and in this video, I'm going to share with you my progress working on that SF sleep last between 2021 all the way to 2023. In future videos, I'm going to do annual reviews of my progress working on my last animal as opposed to the last 3 years. I only did it this way because I've been putting it off for the last 3 years, so I'm finally doing it right now. As you know, my personality type is an ENFP, play, blast, consume, sleep, masculine, feminine. So as you can see, I'm very extroverted on the front end and very introverted on the back end. And I tend to swing between extreme extroversion and extreme introversion. The one good thing I do have going for me is that my last animal is double masculine. And as a result, I can definitely see them even though it's my last animal. Now let's look at the 4 different dimensions of SF sleep last and which areas of the SF sleep last that I am able to do and which aspect of the SF sleep last that I'm unable to do. Let's start off with processing deep emotions. So this is one area of the SF sleep last that I've been able to do for a long time now. Even after I submitted my video for typing with Dave and Chan, they got a chance to examine my videos back in 2019. They said that even though I was sleep last, I was able to process my emotion, and this was because of a lot of negative things I experienced during my childhood and also growing up here in Canada. And that seems to be the recipe to being able to access those deep emotions. It's just going through hardship in life. So when I was younger, me and my mom never got along and we used to fight all the time. And when I was in high school, I vividly remember when I was in a computer class, I was talking to this girl in class and I was telling her about my parents going through a divorce, and she looked at me and she said, "You are weird. You are smiling while you are telling me the story of your parents getting divorced." And that's when I knew something was wrong with me and I really needed to learn to really tap into those deep emotions and actually feel them, not just do a report on what happened. So over time, I did try to figure out how I can go deeper, but every time I did, there would be like a wall that would prevent me to go to the deeper layer of what I was feeling. It wasn't until I was about in my mid-20s when my dad got diagnosed with colon cancer that I was able to go deeper into those emotions and finally feel those deep emotions that I was not being able to access. Since then, I've experienced a lot of negative emotions, from getting rejected by girls that I was trying to date in my 20s, as well as almost falling off a cliff during a hike, to when I first started my career in the fitness industry and I was doing a lot of sales and I was getting rejected left and right by different customers as I was learning how to do the sales process, to moving out with only enough money to pay 1 month's worth of rent. And if I did not make a sale when I was in my fitness job, I would have no money to pay for food or I would have no money for rent. And even up to my 30s, a lot of hardship still happened and it never ended. Still got stranded in the middle of the Amazon rainforest with a smuggler, was denied crossing the border between Cambodia and Thailand when I was backpacking, was denied boarding a plane going from South Korea to Beijing, China during my 1-year trip around the world back between 2016 and 2017. And most recently, during the time of the Snowmageddon, being stranded in the Toronto airport area late in 2022 and losing thousands of dollars in a trip that I already pre-booked ahead of time that is non-refundable. So those are just some of the areas that I've struggled with emotionally. Obviously, there are more, especially between me and my girlfriend, but me and my girlfriend, we do have a very good communication and we've resolved many of the major emotional issues that we have with each other. So back then, the emotion that I was struggling with when I was younger was sadness, which was towards my dad, anger, which was towards my mom, and loneliness, which is because I kept getting friend zoned and I couldn't find a girlfriend that I actually wanted to date. However, nowadays, it's much different. So my top 2 emotions that I'm struggling with right now is frustration and feeling overwhelmed, and that is tied to my career, and I'm trying to get my career off the ground. I want to be a business owner as opposed to an employee. However, I haven't quite bridged the gap yet. My business is doing better than before, but by no means can it sustain me and I can live off it as my primary source of income. So I'm feeling a lot of frustration and also feeling overwhelmed because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order for me to make that business aspirations of mine happen. The next 2 emotion that I'm struggling with, more in the middle level, not as intense as feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, is feeling anger. And anger is an iceberg emotion. So actually what I'm really feeling within that anger is I'm feeling disrespected. Now, however, this is 100% my fault because I'm being disrespected because I am not respecting the SF. So if I respected the SF, I would get disrespected less. So this is 100% on me. The other emotion is feeling misunderstood, and I'm feeling misunderstood again, which is 100% my fault because I'm tribe above self and I tend to talk about other people more, and as a result, I feel like I am not heard. So how can I take responsibility for that? Well, I need to talk about myself more. So that's something I'm going to be working on moving on to the future. And last but not least, more of a minor emotion is sadness, and this is towards my sister. Me and my sister are not getting along right now, but I know over time we will mend things, and this is just something that time will heal and not something that I would force right now. So basically what I learned now when it comes to emotional processing is I first need to identify what strong emotions I'm experiencing, and number 2, I need to ask myself, how is this emotion my fault? And last but not least, the third part is what can I do to fix this problem so that I'm not experiencing strong negative emotions. So I've kind of mentioned already earlier how I was approaching some of those emotions, but for frustration and for feeling overwhelmed, basically what I need to do is move away a little bit from the tribe and really set aside time for myself to just work and not be distracted, because that's 100% my fault that I'm getting distracted, because I should know better that I'm an extrovert, and if I'm around people, that I will want to spend time with them. So actually in 2024, I plan on living outside Canada for 1 year, and I'm gonna live as a digital nomad, and I'm gonna focus 100% on work and business, and that's just me taking responsibility for those strong negative emotions that I'm feeling. The next dimension of the SF sleep blast that I have trouble with, that's not as well resolved as the emotional one, is being SF cool and popular. So this area has been a big issue for me my whole life. I've always been horrible at dressing nicer, and I did have one small window during my life when I was in my dating phase and I was trying to dress to impress. So at that point I was dressing nicer, but that was only like a very small window. Since then, I've let it completely go, and now I need to work on my fashion sense. I've been burned multiple times by my friends saying, oh, you need a new haircut, you need new clothes, and this is something that I will definitely approach into the future, because I know that emotion of feeling disrespected is coming directly from me disrespecting this area. The next area of the SF sleep blast that I'm doing well in some areas and not doing so well in some areas is adhering to health routines to make myself feel good. So basically this is the SI routine to make the FI feel better. So the first aspect of this is having an exercise routine, and among all the different areas of the SI FI health routine, this is the one I'm doing the best in. So as of now, I do weights 2 to 3 times per week. I do cardio 6 days per week, usually between 20 minutes to 1 hour per session, and at least once a week I do a high intensity interval training style of cardio, while the other ones are just steady state. I'm also doing a lot of stretching. I'm doing myofascial release, trigger point therapy. I'm also seeing specialists. So I see physiotherapists, chiropractors, registered massage therapists, osteopaths, and those have all been helping me to make sure that my body feels healthy and feels like it's working properly. I did try to see an acupuncture, and honestly it didn't do much for me, but I think for some people it works. For nutrition, I did get a chance to send my DNA test to Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who sent me a report on things that I'm missing in terms of vitamins and minerals, and my supplements game is top notch. I'm really good with supplements. If you're wondering what supplements I'm taking vitamin D3. I take about 4,000 units of that. I take a probiotics. I take my community host defense for my immune system. I'm taking krill oil for omega-3. I'm taking vitamin C. I'm taking CoQ10. I'm taking magnesium. I'm taking a vitamin B12 spray, and I'm taking zinc. On top of that, I have this skin condition where I'm allergic to friction and vibration, so I do have to take an antihistamine for me not to experience that. However, when it comes to eating clean, I'm about 60-40 for that, where I do eat cleaner than I eat bad, but I still get temptations and I do eat bad. When it comes to mental health, I also have a pretty good routine with that, in which case I go on the elliptical and I go through those 3 questions I mentioned earlier, which is, what emotion am I struggling with? How is it my fault? And what am I gonna do about it? And at the same time, I'm also seeing a psychologist between 5 to 10 times per year just to get that mental health check-in with a professional and just to get some advice as well on how to work on my emotions. Now, the one area of my SI-FI sleep routine that I have the most trouble with, but has actually been a lot better between 2021 and 2023, is my physical sleep. This is hands down the one thing I've had the most trouble with, and what ended up actually happening was I took my 23andMe DNA test, which told me that I actually have bad sleep. No surprise, because I was type sleep last. I then watched an interview with Dana White, the UFC president, now CEO, and during that interview with Dana White, he took some blood tests that said that he had 10 years to live.
So I went down there, they did my blood work, and I'm dying to know when I'm gonna die. And then he said, so do you wanna know how many years you have left? And I'm like, yeah. He gave me 10.4 years.
After watching that interview, I freaked out, and I pretty much went and got a sleep study done with a sleep clinic, and turns out I stopped breathing 23 times per hour per night, and that's why my sleep is always so bad. So even though I get 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night, I feel horrible the next day. The diagnosis was I had 60% central sleep apnea and 40% obstructive. For the obstructive side of things, basically I have a deviated septum, which means my nose inside is slightly tilted this way to the left. So I actually did a surgery called septoplasty where they straightened the inside. It had a horrible recovery process, but now I can breathe from both nostrils as opposed to just one. I was also told I should lose 20 pounds of weight to help with the airflow, so I'm working on that right now. Now for the 60% central, there's nothing I can do about that. That's basically my brain sending signals for me to breathe when I'm sleeping, and because it doesn't send the right signals for me to breathe, I'm now using a CPAP machine which pumps air into my nose, and the moment it detects that I stop breathing, it'll pump extra amounts of air just to continue the breathing process. And actually this has been a game changer because I now wake up refreshed, and for the rest of the day I'm not feeling like death. I can still still work on my sleep, however, because I still have a bad habit of having too much blue light at night, especially because I like to play video games to wind down. And even though I have blue light blocking glasses, it's still not enough to lower the blue light. So basically, I need to work on my sleep routine in which I would have to stop playing video games 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. That way, I can have an even deeper sleep. Now, the last area of SF sleep loss that I have trouble with, alongside with the SF popularity and being cool, is actually prioritizing. I have trouble prioritizing what is the most important to self. And I actually found out why I was so bad at prioritizing, even though it's a no-brainer being sleep loss. And that's because just earlier this year, I was diagnosed with ADHD. So I have a mixed type ADHD where I'm both hyperactive and also inattentive. And I tend to swing between those, which makes perfect sense being play blast on the front end, hyperactive, and then consume sleep on the back end, or inattentive. So basically, this is now teaching me better on prioritizing, setting boundaries from family and friends. And especially if I want to fulfill my dreams and my goals to be self-employed, then I do need to set aside time from those people so that I can work on my business. It doesn't mean I'm gonna stop spending time with them. It just means I'm gonna be more conscious at setting blocks when I spend time with them and also setting blocks when I do work. So when it comes to hanging out with people, I'm gonna be less spontaneous and they have to be more controlled when it comes to scheduling them. And actually, I've been doing pretty good with that, where I do set aside time just once a week to hang out with my friends. But to make things even better, in 2024, 100% I'm just gonna live outside Canada for 1 year to be a digital nomad, and I can focus 100% on work. I also hate cold weather, so that's one of the motivation to live outside Canada for a year, because I noticed that when the weather is cold, I'm less productive. So that so far is my progress towards working on that SF sleep last. So I'm able to do about 2.5 out of 4 of the different aspects of that SF sleep last. So I'm definitely on my way. When I first got typed by Dave and Chan, they said I had 50% use of my SF sleep last, and they did mention that it was the SF cool and popular that I had trouble with, as well as prioritizing. So I feel like in the past 3 years, I was able to improve a little bit. So I think it's closer to about 70 to 75% usage now of that SF sleep last. Obviously, still work in progress, and I hope that in the years to come, I can work better at my fashion sense and being better at prioritizing what is important to me and actually executing on what is the most important. Feel free to share also your journey working on your last animal. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.